What's up, family? Let me keep it real here for a minute. You see, now, this is my lady here, Jane Elliott and Tim Wise. These are two white people that keep it real. Now, you know that YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, they are the one tell you that these videos are copyright because they know that the extinction of them is imminent. They're about to lose all their, how shall I put it, their time on the planet is over. So whether they strike you or delete your channel, like Jane Elliott can tell you, in the next 30 years or so, there's no more white people. There's what they're gonna have to do, they're gonna have to integrate with black people in order to keep their species alive because as the ozone layer open up and the sun bringing more radiation, they are going to die out of skin cancer. They know this. That's why they're trying to lock down your channel, suspend you, delete you, or tell you can't say certain things because it's against its protocols or guidelines. But hey, my girl keep it real. My girl keep it real. So folks, check out what Jane Elliott is speaking. And she's not what? She ain't black. Here we go, folks. Hang on, fellas.
Tale that talks about that has a black, not black, a dark brown female as the heroine. Why is that such a big deal? I know what's a big deal. White folks are scared to death. They know that within 30 years, white people, as they call themselves, will have lost their numerical majority in the United States of America. And they're scared to death that people of color are going to want to treat us the way we have treated them. And so
let me pause this and say this. I do not own the rights to the video. This video is for educational purposes only. Like I say, they have a tendency of telling you what is copyrighted. I do not own the right to the video. This video is for educational purposes only. Keep it going, mister.
They have to. We had a president, well, we call him president, who built a wall, spent millions and millions of dollars to build a wall to keep brown-skinned people out because he said brown-skinned people reproduce too rapidly. Now, what we're dealing with right now is the fallout from that kind of attitude and that kind of statement made by the leader of the United States of America. What do you expect little people to do except say the same kinds of things that he is saying and has said and will say unless we put a stop to this nonsense?
Now, what?
And she's going to say what I said in videos years ago. White folks get their career first and their kids last. White other nationalities get their kids first. Hispanics and colored people get their kids 16 and 17 years old. So when they're 30, the kids are big. White folks get their career first, or when they get 40 and 50, they want kids. That's why the kids always tell the mother or the father, let the nanny take them to school because they are too old to go to school if they're kids, because they get the kids at 15, 16, they're old. But we get our kids at 19 and 20. They don't get it. But like I said, don't care what they do. They're going to come to grips with it eventually because it's the end for them. Whether they like it or not, it's a done deal.
If we would stop using the vocabulary of the 14th and 15th century, if we would stop calling people white because that means purity and goodness, and black because that means savage and evil, if we would start calling people what they are, which is varying shades of brown, we wouldn't have to deal with those two opposites. We have been put on a situation.
The reason for this video is that because they're making the thing Halle Berry, the little black mermaid, so the white folks are getting mad because, and it's a fairy tale. Folks, you can't make this shit up. It's a fairy tale about a little mermaid, because now they put it as a black person. All the other movies that they made, that there were white people playing black parts like Cleopatra, all down the line, they weren't complaining, but now they're putting black foot because black people are taking over and they don't like it. But it's too bad because it is what it is.
By the Spanish Inquisition, Torquemada and company were going to make everybody Catholic, and they were killing people they thought weren't Christians. Then they realized they killed a bunch of Christians, so they had to find another way to decide whether a person was Christian or not, because you couldn't tell by looking at him, and you still can't. But anyway, so he decided they would use skin color. So the lighter skinned people were called white, which is the color of goodness and purity, and the darker skinned people were called black, which is the color of savagery and evil. We have been doing that for another 400, that's only 450 years ago, approximately. And we're still doing it. People, it's time to give it up. Let's grow up. We are in a young nation, but it's time to grow up.
You said something that is on point, and that is they are afraid
Scared to
We're
death.
going to do to them what they did to us. Pat Buchanan wrote that more than 2 decades ago. Mitch
And 10
Landry, in
ways.
his book, came out a couple of years ago, he actually said, hey, white people, I've known black people all my life.
We
Trust
ain't gonna
me,
do it.
don't be scared. They're not going to do to us what we did to them.
But you see, they think that we believe when we say the golden rule, do unto others as you would have others do unto you, that the way white people treat others is the way they want to be treated. I don't think that's the way I want to be treated. I don't believe in the golden rule. I believe in the platinum rule that says do unto others as others would have you do unto them. Treat others the way they want to be treated, not the way you want to be treated. But you see, we're using every possible means we can to enhance the idea of the rightness of whiteness. And by doing it, we are proving that we are less intelligent, that we are less civil, that we are less socialized than people of color are, because people of color know better than to act like this. They know better than to complain because the Little Mermaid isn't their color. They have known better than to complain about all those fairy tales that they read all those years and that were pushed on them by teachers all those years, and none of the heroes and none of the heroines to speak of were anything but white.
I had to trip out at the dragon show, and I'm like, yo, they talking about dragons. And this notion, and these people were like, there were no black people during that period. Like, well, it's dragons.
It's a period that didn't exist. It's a period in which it's just ridiculous. It's a fairy tale. It makes no sense. And teachers need to say to their children, this is a fairy tale every time they introduce one. But instead, they teach them as though this has really happened, boys and girls. Well, it didn't really happen. It's not going to happen, and they don't have to worry. White people don't have to worry. Yeah, they do have to worry. Because eventually, somebody is going to say to them, do you not realize that only 15 to 18% of the population of the earth is classified as white? Do you not realize that white people, so-called white people, have been in the numerical majority always? Do you not realize in the numerical minority always? We have always been in the minority. Why are people all of a sudden catching on to the fact that there aren't as many of us as we thought there were? There aren't as many of us as we thought there were, and it's time to get over it. By the year, within 30 years, white people will be a numerical minority in this country as they are all over the world. Get over it. Haven't you anything better to argue about?
There was if y'all could cue that Bernard Shaw comment up, I want to play it. I played this when he passed away because we were in Las Vegas.
I do not own the
2007.
copyright to the video.
He
This
made
video
a
is for
comment,
educational
to white
purposes
women and men,
only.
that I thought was on point. And Jane, as I'm sitting here, looking at this, we are still operating in America where you still have the first African American, the first woman, the first Latino, the first Asian. And I was looking at Ron Brownstein's Twitter feed, and where you have these Republican folks who are polled, and they say that racism against white people is just as bad or even more so bad discrimination as it is against black people. And you have the folks like Donald Trump and Turning Point USA and all these people and this conservative.
Wow, it's truly an honor to talk to you, Ms. Elliott, for all of just the work that you've done and inspiring so many of us who do this work in diversity education. I just really want to thank you. The question that I have for you is, could you speak a little bit to the reverse aspect of this? Because I hear people talking about a black person playing a Little Mermaid, but they've had nothing to say about the over 100 white characters throughout history, actors who have played non-white people like Othello and Genghis Khan and Cleopatra. Could you speak a little bit to that hypocrisy?
That hypocrisy is what put us where we are today. We're absolutely determined as palefaces not to admit the truth and not to see the truth. And when you walk into a room, or as happened with me, I was giving a speech at a college at a university in Texas. In the middle of my remarks, some teacher stood up and said, I just look for the person's heart. We deliberately teach people to ignore the largest organ on a person's body, inch by inch, which is their skin, in order to think we have to get along with them. This is so ridiculous that we are going to pretend that the Little Mermaid couldn't possibly have been anything but white. And first, it's a fairy tale, but the first modern human beings that evolved on this earth were not white. Whites came last, and we are going to go first. Make no mistake about this. long after we so-called white people have died of melanoma or some other problem because of the lack of melanin in our skin, all these people of color will still be there, and they'll still be productive.
You heard that, white
and they'll
people?
still be creative, and they'll still be doing wonderful things, just like they were when they managed to populate every landmass on the face of the earth. People of color from countries in Africa at the equator originally populated every landmass on the face of the earth. Why are we afraid to admit that, and why aren't we teaching that? Why aren't we teaching that this continent, this what we call the United States of America, this continent was discovered by people of color between 20,000 and 10,000 years before Columbus was a gleam in his father's eye. It's time for us to stop teaching the lie and start teaching the truth. It will make everything easier for everyone. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did.
Rosita Shannon.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much, Jane, for your work. I worked as a diversity trainer for years, and a lot of the training that we used was based off of previous videos you've done. So I know you've been doing this for a long time. This whole controversy is completely ridiculous. That is some of the best singing that you've ever heard in any Little Mermaid movie. And the only thing that I'm mad about is that they showed the trailer now, and we have to wait until the middle of next year to actually see the movie. That's the only crime that I see. But here's my question for you. A lot of times when we see white people who are very educated on racial justice issues, when you talk to them, they will tell you that personally their families have discarded them, or other white people just sort of chalk them up as to be traitors for talking about standing for racial justice. Do you feel like, has that personally happened to you? And do you feel like folks like yourself and others who have done a lot of this work have been able to really make a dent into really educating white folks?
Hell yes, it's happened to me. I have been discarded by everybody who knew me as a child or as a young person. And my mother kicked me out of the family after my father died because she said I have ruined their reputation of the whole family with that eye color thing. So that I understand that. I understand her anger. And I suppose I should feel sad about that. And I did cry for about 5 minutes, and then I got over that because my life was much better when I no longer had to go over and babysit my mother. So yeah, that's one of the things you do. If you put your head above the parapet, somebody's bound to try to shoot it off. So if you don't want to go into this kind of situation, just keep your mouth shut and go along to get along. And
I ain't doing that. I ain't gonna post myself. Let them watch it. Let them strike me, delete me. I can keep bringing it up because they have to know. Get over it. My girl said, get over it.
Continue to fester and boil. But when enough of us stand up and say, no, you're not going to do that in my presence. No, you're not going to tell that black joke in my presence because, number one, you don't know what you're talking. You can tell Irish jokes in my presence if you want to because I'm Irish and I know how strange we are. But you're not allowed to tell, I'm fussy about the jokes I'll allow in my presence. And many of the things we say are not funny at all to the ones who are on the receiving end of it. And when people say, well, you didn't understand, I say, wait a minute. The way you say it is the problem, not how I take it.
Scott Bolden.
Hi, Professor. I'm not only a big fan, I just love you for what you've done and what you stand for.
Same here.
I think the greatest example of white America taking over or projecting an image is through their religion. That Jesus was blue-eyed and blonde-haired, when the Bible says that the region he was born in, Palestine, or what we believe to be the Middle East now, that he was of matted hair and olive skin, and it made sense. I'd love to get your comment on that. And then secondly, if all of this...
I'm going to say this one more time. This video, I do not own the copyright to the video. The video is for educational purposes only. So let the tube figure that one out because they know they have a tendency of telling you violate the guidelines or it is a copyright video. Keep going.
This is true. If none of us are born with a racism gene, we're taught environmentally,
Right.
Then why is it so hard? Why can't we get a national dialogue on race going where you have those fearless conversations? Roland talks about his book and, table conversations with family and friends, but leadership mandates more than that, doesn't it? That we have this national dialogue. Clinton and Obama just could not get it going and were criticized for it. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on those two issues.
Well, I don't remember what the two issues were, but I'll tell you how I think about this.
Well, what was Jesus
Women of
and
color,
Christianity?
women of color can solve this problem. Women of color can solve this problem. They know what the problem is, and they know how it has to be solved, and they're going to come forward and they're going to take care of it. We aren't going to have a choice as to whether we have a dialogue about this from now on. We're going to have to start telling the truth, because the very survival of this nation depends on our being able to take advantage of all the brilliance that is in those minds of people of color, which we have denied. If your children and your grandchildren, your great grandchildren haven't read the book Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization, have you read it?
I have it, yes.
I have not, ma'am.
I have it. I have it in my
Get that book and read it this
I have
week,
it.
and then show it to everyone.
I have it in my
people that you
collection.
deal with, because
Right
we have
over there
denied
in my
and
collection.
we have refused to acknowledge and recognize and take advantage of all the brilliance that is in the kind of people who discovered this continent and every other continent on the face of the earth. It's time to start talking about this honestly. But when you try to talk to most white people about racism, the first thing they'll say is, "I don't see color." Now, it's time for people to stop refuse. Have you had that said to you recently? I don't see color, right?
Oh, I've heard it many times.
I work in big corporate law. Yes, ma'am.
Oh yeah, and every time some fool melanemic woman says that to me, I say, I knew that you didn't see color, because if you saw color, you wouldn't have your hair that color. So I guess you really don't see color. And then she gets all upset and angry and says, "You don't know what I'm talking about." I said, "Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. You don't want to relate to a person unless their skin is the color that you approve of. Madam, there are no white people on this earth. If you want to read about what happens to white people, Google Tanzania. And in Tanzania, there is a large group of albinos.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll find out how ugly it is. Yes, have you Googled Tanzania?
Okay,
Do you
then.
know about Tanzania and how
She knows her
albinism is
shit.
treated there? Because if you don't, you really ought to take a look at that. It will change your attitude where color is concerned in a hurry. People, we are all shades of brown. Get the National Geographic magazine for April of 2018 and read it. Everybody should do that, because it's a short, simple description of what's going on in this country, what color is, where it came from, and how very, very valuable melanin is.
This was, I was in the room when this happened. Bernard Shaw got the.
Wake up. Wake up. Globally, you are an island speck
Cut off the white man part.
in an ocean of color. The reins of power will weaken, and so will your grip, if you do not faithfully and fulsomely support our nation's greatest strength, diversity. If you do not share, you will lose.
Yep.
Diversity. Diversity is not racial, ethnic, or gender encroachment. Diversity is our national survival. To you caught in the middle, stay vigilant. You must stay strong. You must carry on. If not you, who? To you, starting careers, embrace risk. Mold change, making it work for you. Better to walk the plank.
So Jane, I wanted to, what he laid at he was specifically talking to white men. And I remember the faces in the room, they were kind of like, oh my God, did he go there? That was 2007, 15 years ago when he said that. And when we look today, when we look at the numbers, we look at who still is in control.
Nothing much has changed.
Some change. Sure, a black woman is president of MSNBC. Sure, a black woman is president of ABC News.
Not much has
but
changed.
The reality is, when we talk about who controls the images,
Yep.
Newspapers and digital and movies and television, it is still white men.
Media.
And that's why this battle continues. And what he said there, you got to stay vigilant and keep fighting. Thing that you've been doing, what I've done, what others have done, because that's the only way it changes. We cannot give up.
No, we can't.
But what we're saying is white men. These are not white men. These are pale, stale males who will be boys all their lives until somebody teaches them the truth about who they are, what they are, and where we all came from. The first modern human being on this earth was undoubtedly a person of color, and we've got to get over the idea of more than one race. There's only one race on the face of the
human
earth.
race.
Until we give up the idea of several different races, that's how long we're going to have this problem. These aren't racial problems. These are problems of ignorance. You can't change the color of your skin, but you can change the ignorance of your mind, and we could do that. And education could do that. Education should have done that by now, but instead we are still teaching the same old nonsense. It's time to start teaching the truth.
The gentleman, the young man who's writing a book on you, called me and he interviewed me, and he said, "Are Roland? Are you surprised that there are not more Jane Elliots?" And I said, "No, it's not surprising." I said, because it takes a level of courage to say what needs to be said. And I've said there should be 10,000, 100,000, 1,000,000 Jane Elliots and Tim Wises and others. I said, because that is what it's going to take. I said, because you have to confront it head on. That eye test, again, when people they play those videos, they still go around when you said, how many of y'all in this room would trade places with a black person? And nobody says anything because they know. What did Chris Rock say? Ain't a white man in America want to trade places with me and I'm rich. Because they know what that history has been.
But you see, there's more than 10,000 Jane Elliots. There are a whole lot more black women than that. And every woman of color has forgotten more since breakfast than I will ever learn about racism. They have the answer because they know the problem. They know how it feels to be right on the receiving end of it, and they do not want to cause that feeling in anyone else. If you haven't had that experience, you don't realize how damaging it is. They have had that experience, and they're going to be the ones who lead us out of this mess. Make no mistake about that. They are going to be the ones who lead us out of this mess.
I agree.
Jane, it's always a pleasure.
Well, folks, we're out of here. This is our time, so just don't worry. We got nothing to worry. Don't care what they do, the strike, delete, whatever they do, it is our time. So don't care what they do. Their time is up. So, folks, hang in there. It's going to get better. We're going to live in peace and love and harmony. And what? Financial freedom. I'm out of here. Peace out. One love.